Anyway, the safe word this time is Galunga.
Okay,
No,
and this week we are on episode 40, Big 40 for the Pregame Network
big old
podcast. My name is
4-0.
Dan. I am joined by my buds Anthony and Joe. We're here to talk about video games and pretty much only video games because we love
Pretty
them so
much.
much.
Who doesn't love a good video game except for the people currently developing them?
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Um, so this week has been a pretty busy week, I think, for at least for me with the news that I keep up with.
Mm.
Um, but first, as every week, we're just going to go over the things that we've been playing. Um, List has been pretty consistent for me. Uh, I have been playing Marvel Rivals. I went back into Space Marine, like I said last week. I just finished playing a couple PvP matches before
Hmm.
we hopped on the call. What else? Oh, Joe, I I re-downloaded Warframe. I logged in, and then I immediately got completely overwhelmed, and I closed the game. I think that you need to be my guide, like, because I can't do this on my own.
That's pretty funny.
I logged in. I forgot that I bought one of like a different Warframe. It was the one that's like the Spartan soldier with the shield and the spear. I don't remember what it's called. What?
It's Stynex.
Yeah, that yeah, Stein, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't remember this guy. And then I opened the menu, and there was just it was like a fucking blanket of text. Like I couldn't do it. And I don't know what prerequisites I need to get to the 1999 stuff, so I just fucking closed the game. I couldn't do it. Um,
Literally just like break. You're just like, oh god, my eyes.
yeah, that's exactly what happened.
It's
Um,
probably the Sanctum stuff, but
Maybe
uh,
we'll have to play one day.
Yeah, I'll have
Um,
to sit down and play
What
it.
else? I jumped back into Witchfire. It got some more updates. It's still in early access, so I've been doing
Mm.
a little bit of that. That's been a fun time. Path of Exile 2. I like every time I hit a wall, I'll take a little bit of a break. I'll go back when I'm fresh. I'll beat the boss that I'm stuck on, and then I move on. And
Mm.
then I started playing Near Automata again.
Really?
Um, yeah, so I've never beaten it, and I have always wanted to. I keep on hearing like it's a really good game. It's worth the playthrough. So I re-downloaded it and I started another playthrough, and we'll see how far I get this time. Hopefully, I do beat it. Um, but yeah, I purposely withheld that, Anthony, because I wanted to know I wanted to see like your gut reaction when I said that, and that's pretty much exactly the response I thought that I was gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, the discussion will come when you're done, or you just you
Yeah.
tap out and you're done playing it. But you know, I'm sure I've mentioned before, like I think it's a bit overrated. I don't think it's terrible. It disappointed me in a few ways,
Okay, you finished it?
and yeah, I finished like I don't believe I ever got to the final ending.
Yeah, there's like
I don't wanna
five endings
spoil
or
it.
something.
There's more than that, but the whole point is it's a weird thing because it's just like I pushed myself as far as I could go, and I know what happens afterwards. And it's just like I gave that game my all because I was interested in it from the very first trailer, and it let me
Okay.
down in a few ways. And it's like there's a few nitpicks I can get past. Like I think some of the voice actors involved in the game are like bad people, so I switch to Japanese and I power through it or whatever. But it's
Mhm.
there's a lot of core gameplay stuff that once again when you're done with it, one way or the other, we'll talk more about it. But it ended up disappointing me personally.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty much what I've been playing.
Mhm.
On my to-do list, I still want to do another Cyberpunk playthrough with different choices. I need to get to the most recent Remnant 2 DLC. I haven't even touched that yet. And really high up on my priority list, actually, for like another playthrough is Mass Effect 2 and 3. I I played through Mass Effect 1 like a year or two ago. But I never went on to finish the trilogy. I really want to do that, especially if they're going to be making an Amazon show.
Mm.
I want to really brush up on the lore and the
You,
universe.
you
So
saved
that's really
yourself
high up
there
on my
by
priority list.
you saved yourself there because I was going to berate you for saying just 2 and 3, but
Yeah, I
apparently
know,
you
I
have a
know.
save waiting in the wings. I'm going to let that slide.
I did replay one on the Legendary Edition
Yeah.
like a year or two ago.
Okay.
And look, they remastered it, quote unquote, but it's still like kind of rough to play through.
To,
Um,
I
the
I had
story
it,
is still a
I had a knee-jerk reaction to that I bit my tongue on. I like
thanks, buddy.
I was about to say it's better than the other two, but it's just like I don't want to get into this fucking a fucking argument over Mass Effect because I love the whole trilogy.
You should have even said that, because how is it? You know what? I'm just gonna.
We'll save it for another day.
Yeah, I can't.
We'll save it for another day.
That's a whole fucking hour conversation.
Because Dan,
because
all
we're
I'm
both
gonna say,
experts on that fucking franchise.
all I'm gonna fucking say is it's been years. I'm tired of the shade you throw at Mass Effect 1. I've had it up to here. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna discuss it one day.
Okay,
but
fine,
that's all.
fine.
I just wanted to get I just wanted to get that out of my system.
Yeah,
that's
all right,
perfect. That's
all right.
perfectly fine.
Well, you're entitled to be wrong.
Oh, you just gotta get the last word in, huh? Joe, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing a lot of V Rising. I think I said that the last time.
Yeah.
I think at that point I had just bought it, but like literally like two maybe 3 days ago, I beat like every boss in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I beat that completely. I didn't really have any content to do to kind of get through after that, which was kind of disappointing. And then I just recently got Enshrouded, which is another. I got this game called Enshrouded. It's another survival.
Oh, is that? Oh, I've seen gameplay of that.
Yeah, it's not bad so far. It's very Dark Soulsy kind of.
I can't really do those survival genre games where like you have to like craft the wood to make the fire to cook the food, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It's not really my cup of tea. The closest thing that I get to that is like Satisfactory.
Yeah, I mean that's close. It's kind of there's kind of like a bit of a resource, like what's the word? It's so basically it's like like you can't turn like wood into twigs and shit like that. That's kind of annoying. Like there's like if you need a specific resource for something, it's like something that you would think is kind of like compatible, doesn't really, you know, translate or whatever. But yeah, aside from that, it seems pretty all right.
I feel like that's the
played
knee-jerk
that much
reaction
of it.
that you would get. It's all right.
Yeah, no, it hasn't exactly blown my mind yet, but I'm only like 2 hours in, so
yeah. Okay.
And if you looked at your Steam friends list, you probably saw that I have 27 hours on Ragnarok Online now.
What?
I didn't even know that you could still,
old.
I didn't even know you could still play Ragnarok Online.
I don't. Hold on, back up. What is that?
This is like
It's
an ancient
an extremely old MMO.
I don't think
that's
I've
not
heard of that.
It's like what is it, Dreamcast era? You could be mixing it
Anyway,
up, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
You know, I don't know how you guys if you've probably never played RuneScape really, but like
I tried it. I was not a fan.
I actually really like RuneScape because I really like its questing and shit. Like even like 2007 Scape like OSRS, that's like I feel like I could still play that, but this game is just Ragnarok was just so old. Like the UI is god awful, and I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. So like basically the only reason I have
your takeaway from hours.
The reason I have 27 hours is because I opened the game, got fucking lost, and then I left it running on my computer for a day, and then I closed it, uninstalled.
That's actually interesting that it's still playable because I've never played it, but I've always admired its aesthetic and the music that the game has. So like I've heard a lot of the soundtrack and it sounds very nice.
It's kind of like media.
Actually, one thing I will say about Nier so far is that the music has been very relaxing. I don't know why that triggered that thought.
Yeah, it's one of the Square Enix properties that's very popular for its like more relaxing tone music. Like it's actually they did a cross in Nier Automata. Like Joe knows this obviously. Like they did a crossover with Final Fantasy 14 a while ago, and everybody goes and does the raids and gets the different roles so they can play them in the houses and all the different areas. And so the Nier music is very popular, for sure.
Anthony, what have you been up to?
So I mean, aside from my normal stuff, you know, I have the Street Fighter, the Guilty Gear, Girls Frontline, Marvel Rivals, all that stuff. I went and I finally finished the Citadel, and I'm almost done with Beyond the Citadel.
Oh yeah,
liked them both. I you know, a lot of the atmosphere stuff and a lot of the story stuff really isn't for me. Like I like things that are a bit more not that I can't handle darker stories, but it's just like I like more hope, and while it's there, it's not really, I'm weird like that, but it was very satisfying to play. I enjoyed it from a gameplay
I don't know
standpoint.
why that gave me a chuckle.
So I mean, I could talk up and down about them. We already did the last 2 times in a row, so I'm not going to bog it down. If you ever finish it, I don't know if you will, we'll talk one more time about it, but
No,
I enjoyed it.
I plan on finishing it.
No.
I do. I like boomer shooters a lot, so that definitely fits that niche. I don't really play them for the story though. I just like to experience the gameplay.
Oh well, I didn't mean to say that there was like a huge story to grasp. It's just that what was there kind of didn't necessarily keep me in the, like, I don't want to say like, I don't want to go it made me sad, because it didn't, but it was just like, it's a tonal thing. It's not necessarily my preferred tone, but I enjoyed it. And the only other thing I played, because, and we'll talk more about this later, is because it was a surprise announcement. I went and I played Ninja Gaiden II Black.
Right, how is that?
I like it a lot. It's a classic action game that from a time that that's kind of gone as far as those games go. As far as
like
action,
old school Devil May Cry.
Yeah, you could look at it that way, because like if you talk about action games now, they're all like a particular flavor. There's like 3 different ones to choose from. Back then, sure, it was hanging out with Devil May Cry and God of War and all that stuff, but they each had a very distinct feel to them. Ninja Gaiden, its whole thing was it's brutal. Like if you're not paying attention, the enemies will like do finishing moves on you, or like really extravagant grab moves and stuff like that, the same way that you're used to doing to the enemies. So it was interesting to feel out. It kind of makes me want to go do a whole playthrough, because the whole thing about Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is that it's supposed to be like the definitive version of Ninja Gaiden 2, the same way Ninja Gaiden Black was to Ninja Gaiden 1. And there's this whole kerfuffle in the community where there was like the Sigma remakes and the original games, and there's a lot of purists out there. The way it feels to me, it feels like they took Sigma 2, like the bones of Sigma 2, and adjusted them to be more like the first version of Ninja Gaiden 2, and then just threw it in Unreal, which is probably why the game's fucking 90 gigabytes. Has no business being that big. But the long and short of it is, I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm one of the guys that enjoyed both Ninja Gaiden 2 and Sigma 2, even though Ninja Gaiden 2 I think is a little bit better with certain things. But that's a whole comparison for another time. I haven't played the original 2 since like they were fucking new. So Ninja Gaiden 2 and Sigma 2 I haven't played in a while. But overall, I'm enjoying it. It is a type of action game you don't really see anymore. Like the last time something like this happened was when Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition came out, and I played the shit out of that. So that was very nice. Yeah, so cool. Been enjoying it.
All right, very good. All right, well, then now that we got that out of the way, I guess it's time to talk about some news and whatnot. All right, so do you guys have anything like small you want to talk about?
I noticed that the anime adaptation guy was doing his rounds lately. If you remember that guy, Adi Shankar, whatever the fuck his name is. He was the guy.
The adaptation guy.
Yeah, he's the guy that netted the rights. He did the Castlevania anime. He did the Captain Laserhawk anime. He's doing an Assassin's Creed anime. He's doing a PUBG anime, and his next thing on the docket is a Devil May Cry anime. And
sure you're thrilled about that.
I am not looking forward to it at the slightest, because he's basically going online and doing his whole word of mouth thing, where he's like, oh my, I have so many amazing plans. Each season is going to be like one of the games, and they're going to have their own opening, and it's going to be unique, and it's going to be fun. And so while he's ramping this whole thing up with advertising, word of mouth all over social media, it's the same fucking thing as everything else. Ignore any negative feedback or critique. Highlight all the positives and everyone eating the shit up. Because like I'm looking through the different threads. He's like, somebody goes like, I don't know why people are hating this. This looks amazing. And he's like, I don't even see the haters, bro. And meanwhile, if you scroll down the comments, it's just people saying like, this looks like shit. You ruined Castlevania. The Ubisoft stuff sucked. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, this guy has a horrendous track record. Like, his most noticeable accomplishments in like the industry, not just the gaming industry, but like movies and television, is getting The Simpsons to dive into a 6-year-long struggle session when he did that video on Apu, and he was also one of 7 producers on that one Liam Neeson Wolf movie. Like those are his claims to fame. He essentially canceled. I'm not a big Simpsons guy, but I know everybody loved that character. He basically got that character written off the show, and then it's funny. It's just like,
Which is fucking ridiculous, by the way.
It's like I found this out the other day that it's just like, he was one of the youngest producers ever. I'm just like, on what? Oh, The Gray, that Liam Neeson Wolf movie, and I'm just like. I go to the page and it's like his name isn't there. I needed to do extracurricular research to find out that he was even involved in this movie because this movie had 7 producers. But anyway, and he's doing this whole spiel where he's just like, I'm doing it for the fans, for the communities. And I'm just like, nobody buys your bullshit. It's just this anime is going to come out. It's going to suck. People are going to lap it up, talk about the action. They're going to forget about it. And then just schleps like me are going to be like, wow, that was just like a tornado just came through my house. But I have people telling me how awesome it was to watch the tornado from down the block. That's the kind of shit. That's what it feels like to me. So I this guy. His father is apparently loaded and pushes him into all these spots. So it's I can only hope that eventually he gets bored, because even though these things suck, they get it's the kind of shit that gets launch appeal from people who will watch it once, be wowed by we kind of talked about this with Secret Level, where it's the jingling keys that go oh, the action,
ooh, shiny.
the gore and the action, and the anime guy said a funny swear word and then I clapped, and then they just fucking forget about it. It's like if I went to someone and said oh, did you like the Castlevania anime? They'd be like, oh yeah, it was awesome, but they couldn't tell me a fucking thing about it. It's that kind of thing. So there's just a little small tidbit. Guy is getting ready to ruin DMC. He'll be coming for Assassin's Creed next, Joe. So don't worry about that. You'll get some of the action too.
I mean, it's already dead to me, so I don't care.
Yeah, but
me too.
Have you ever? It's dead, but did you want to see its corpse raped by a smarmy guy who pretends to love it as much or more than you?
I can't.
Speaking of Assassin's Creed and it being dead, did you guys see any of the hands-on preview footage that they released recently? This was in the past couple days.
I've seen some of it. I've seen all the shills, coming out of the woodwork to talk about how awesome the technology is in the game.
Oh, okay. So my experience has actually been the opposite. All the news feeds and people that I follow for my news, pretty much have said the opposite. It's not shaping up to be a great experience, and the way that they
you don't say.
Yeah, I know, right? Fucking shocker. The design choice that they're taking with the 2 protagonists, one is a traditional assassin, emphasizes stealth and parkour and all that stuff that Assassin's Creed has been known for over a decade, obviously. The other one is Yasuke. How do you pronounce his name?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. So Yasuke is he's the samurai power fantasy of the game. He's this big hulking character that has this big katana and the fucking spiked club that you always see him with, and his parkour abilities are terrible. Apparently, he can't get to certain points on the map that only the other assassin can get to, and it's such a the disparity between the 2 characters is so large that if you're playing as Yasuke, then things that you would assume that you would be able to do because it's an Assassin's Creed game, you just can't do, because he's a bigger character. They take his power fantasy pretty seriously. You can't climb certain buildings. Apparently he's borderline invincible. According to these previews, no matter how many hits he takes, he just doesn't fucking go down. It's not good. It's not great. I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but whatever you said about Assassin's Creed reminded me of it.
Yeah,
I used to love that franchise, and now I am so apathetic towards it. It makes me a little sad, which I guess contradicts my apathism or my apathy. But yeah, what the fuck happened, man? Assassin's Creed was so good, and now it's just.
It's fucking pulled pork to me at this point. I can't recognize it. That's literally you were just oh, would you like to see its corpse? I was I don't even recognize it anymore. It's something else. I don't even know what the fuck I'm looking at.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fucking terrible.
All I've got left to say about the Assassin's Creed preview as we get closer to the release is I'm just, you know, the shills are out in force talking about how awesome it is. We're talking about like, oh, you can chop down bamboo now, and I'm just like, I saw that technology in Legend of Zelda.
Who cares?
I saw that technology in Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker on the GameCube. Like, I appreciate it's there. But it's like, if this is your highlight, you've probably got some problems on the horizon as far as that's concerned.
We saw it in a tech demo for fucking Metal Gear.
Yeah, way back.
Like,
when
I don't
it
think
was
that AC1
continuous,
needs a remake. Like, Anthony, I know your opinions on remakes,
Mhm.
but if Ubisoft decided, hey, we're just gonna build this game up from the ground up to be a faithful recreation of the original vision, but for 2025 or 2026 or whatever, I like honestly that would just be a way better course of action than this fucking formulaic bullshit that they've been pulling for the past 5-6 years.
I will play devil's advocate for you and say that you're thinking you have wishful thinking in that. Just like in your mind you have an optimal scenario in your head. I don't trust modern Ubisoft to do that, right?
Yeah,
I just don't trust them.
In my fantasy world where I had a magic wand and I could fix all the problems with the gaming industry, like that is probably the only salvageable course of action for Ubisoft at this point if they don't sell to Tencent or whoever is going to be.
I don't listen. I don't. Go ahead.
He called what you said wishful thinking. If I had a fucking magic wand,
oh boy,
I would make everything after 3 just not exist. Like maybe Black Flag.
Black Flag was okay,
but I wouldn't call it. I would never call it an AC game. Black Flag is fine. I just don't.
All right. Well, I don't want to linger on Assassin's Creed too long. We all have the same overall opinion.
The only two things I'll say is one to go back to your remake thing. Yes, and a faithful remake of the first Assassin's Creed would be nice because in your mind you're picturing just a great and completed experience just expanded and brought to modern hardware, but that's not what they would do.
I know.
And then the only other thing I wanted to touch on is aside from all the shill stuff that I've been seeing for the game, I've been watching them like awkwardly pivot in certain marketing aspects in Japan where they don't mention like that Yasuke is a samurai anymore, and they don't show him on any of the advertising just from all the black eyes they've been getting the last couple months, where it's just like every time they do something to offend somebody, and I just love watching them trip over themselves trying to chase this perfect advertising that'll just make it sell well everywhere. And I don't think it's going to be as bad as what ended up happening with Veilguard, but I don't think it's going to sell nearly what they're expecting, what they want, or what they need.
No, because when Assassin's Creed 1 first came out, like it was the only game of its kind. Like it was groundbreaking, and it was. You had to play that game. It was that good, and they're never going to be able to capture that lightning in a bottle again. And I know that, but if they just remade the game from the ground up in a modern engine, and it didn't really deviate that much from the original vision, then I think that I would play it. But that's not going to happen. So let's just move on.
Yeah. To move on, just to like a little small thing. I know we talked last week about the director for Veilguard leaving BioWare, but did we talk about the sales?
Maybe we touched upon it, but not too deeply.
No, yeah, just because it came up because I was thinking of Veilguard. It nearly undersold by 50%.
Not surprised. That game. Yeah. Joe, I know your girlfriend loves that game, but
because I don't want to linger on that because we've talked about the game ad nauseum at this point. But I know we talked about the director last time. I just wanted to touch on the sales because I don't know if we got a chance to talk about the sales. It undersold heavily, so just wanted to get that out there. But
moving on to a small thing that I would like to touch upon. I'm going to bundle this together because these two franchises are two sides of the same coin, Battlefield and COD. So the first small thing, I know I mentioned it to you last week, Anthony. Whatever COD is coming out in 2026, apparently DMZ is coming back as the third mode. So last year was Modern Warfare 3. That was Sledgehammer, right?
Yes.
This year is Black Ops 6. That's Treyarch, which means next year is Infinity Ward, who created DMZ. I would love to see DMZ come back. I love that mode. It was the perfect combination of PvE and Warzone to me. Um, I loved the PvE missions. I just running around looting stuff, completing like I just said, completing the missions, uh, raiding certain buildings and like bosses and whatnot. And then, if two player teams are going after the same contract, you both have to go to like the safe on that moving train. You remember that? And you had to fight
Yes, that
over it.
was cool.
It was just so much fucking fun. And and Warzone has never been able to recreate that feeling for me. But DMZ, there was just something about it. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and it's fucking dead right now because for whatever reason they didn't see a need to continue to support it, even though people really do enjoy that mode. But apparently, do you know who the Ghost of Hope is? He's like a prominent COD leaker.
Yeah, he's a leaker. I'm aware of him.
Yeah, so he was the one who put this on Twitter. Apparently this DMZ is coming back to Infinity Ward's next COD, and I really hope it sticks around this time because I was so disappointed when they pulled the plug and we just stopped playing.
Yeah.
So
it was a shame because it was a unique third mode, and guess what? It was no skin off of anybody's bones because they could just reuse stuff that was already necessary to develop for Warzone for these little things. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. Recycle stuff for the third mode. The real effort went into like the raids and stuff. That's where
that was another thing that I was going to say. The raid, the Call of Duty raids in Modern Warfare 2 were very good.
A lot of fun.
I liked them a lot. Like it was just, God, like perfect blend of communication, puzzle solving, and combat. Yep. And I'm all about that shit, especially from my Destiny heyday. It was really, really good. And the fact that you could like earn specific rewards based on how fast you completed it was great. We just never really we would beat it once and then we would never really touch it again, which is fine. But it was a really cool experience was the fact that they added raids into Modern Warfare 2. So that was one thing. That was the COD aspect of this. The next thing was Battlefield. As we know, Battlefield recently has been lacking majorly. And then an ex-DICE developer came out and was like, you guys need to temper your expectations for the next Battlefield because DICE just wants this to be COD with like all the skins and the Warzone and all the bullshit that you expect with it. So that wasn't a great update that I was hoping for.
Oh, that's funny.
Because I love Battlefield. Like I love COD in its own right, and then I love Battlefield in its own right. Back when Bad Company 1 and 2 and Battlefield 3 and 4 were out, like, oh god, it was a fun sandbox, and if you got a full squad together, it was such a good time. And then like I file Battlefield under like it's just let's just fuck around and have fun in a super destructible environment, and then COD is really more of my competitive side. Not so much as of late because I really prefer more of the PvE stuff and just the arcade shootery stuff of like the multiplayer. But COD definitely brings out my more competitive nature with objectives. But yeah, like the ex DICE dev was like EA just wants microtransaction slop. I think that was the quote. Let me find it.
I mean, I'm willing to believe it one way or the other. EA is despite the fact that after the black eye that Veilguard gave them, and also I think their latest FIFA undersold. They just want more of the live service and the microtransactions and everything. They're used to it too because all of the sports games that they do basically have built-in pack systems where people are basically buying digital like collectible cards that are like, if you went out and you bought like a pack of sports cards or whatever, the collectibles and whatnot, but it's like in digital form for the physical for the players that you can use in the game. So they're already running a racket with all of that and collecting all that money, and they've been desperately trying to get that into other genres, not just sports. But it's like you'll never like if you manage to corner that market in sports games and just ruin that entire genre of games, they like the suits at the top.
You would have to go out of your way to do that, though.
It is, but here's the thing. They've cornered that sports market, and it's like it's possible because sports fans are used to spending money on stuff like that, collectibles, right? So it kind of works. They're used to it. They eased into it, and they got their money's worth. And it's starting to underperform now because people are kind of sick of it. But what I'm getting at is you can't replicate that with other genres. And if somebody manages to at any point, it's going to be like a one-off lightning in a bottle thing. It's not something that's going to be something you can replicate. So while everybody's trying to chase the live service train, that they think exists out there, EA is more thirsty for it than anybody else because they're used to getting it from sports games as a genre. So they're going to be chasing that. And Battlefield is like the biggest IP that's active in their catalog that isn't a sports game. So they're going to keep chasing that.
Yeah, what a shame, man. I just okay. Let me take a step back and just say this. Like I'm okay with all of the microtransaction bullshit and the slop and whatnot, but Battlefield 2042, that wasn't a Battlefield game. That was the farthest thing from a Battlefield game. They made so many design choices that it was so not in the realm of Battlefield that it was basically unrecognizable. They just need to go back to what made that IP so great in the first place. Like super destructible environments, the class-based combat system, and just a playground of destruction, essentially, which I guess is the same thing as destructible environments. But like 2042 didn't feel like a Battlefield game. That just felt like modern day bullshit. The last good Battlefield game was the last good Battlefield game was Battlefield 1 because it had all those things that made Battlefield such a fun experience, and it still had the ridiculous loot boxes associated with all the EA properties, but at least it still felt like Battlefield. I'm okay with the loot boxes. I'm okay with the microtransaction slop and the bullshit because I don't have to actively participate in it. But if you're gonna give me a game, if you're gonna give me a product that says Battlefield on the box but doesn't feel like Battlefield, then you can go fuck yourself. So that's my opinion on it. I could deal with the bullshit, but if you give me the bones of what Battlefield was, then I'll still play it. So take that as you will.
It's a weird thing to kind of take, but Joe, you might not have heard me rant about this particular thing, but Dan definitely has multiple times at this point where I basically say, like, listen, if you wanna try that, if you wanna have like a base that just pays you whatever, as long as you're providing the core game experience and you're providing that experience for the core players, like, somebody who's actually interested in what you're offering beyond, like, flavor of the month or, just getting in and getting out and being done with it, then I'm fine with that. It's kind of like I've used the examples of Call of Duty and Street Fighter because it's just like if I boot up a Call of Duty game, there's a shit ton of egregiously priced cosmetics that I will never buy, but I don't have to worry about the gameplay content, right? I'll always have the new guns unlockable. I'll always have the new maps available. I'll always have the different events that I can go and play that aren't crossover related, right? And then there are people out there that will spend $30 and they're basically footing the bill for my gameplay content. Kind of similar, and in a less obtrusive way, if I go to Street Fighter, there's a shit ton of avatar cosmetics and expendable currencies and different things that casual players can do in like the social modes, but meanwhile, me and Harrison and whoever else I'm playing with, we have the core game as we've known it. Sure, the DLC comes out much slower, and there's a complaint to be had about that, but the whole point is, like, these guys are getting their revenue from the people who just, like, they get the game as a gift or whatever, they pick it up off the shelf, and they futz around in the modes, and they spend a shit ton on cosmetics, and then they fuck off, and the core players still get the gameplay that they want. There's a middle ground there. I would prefer if we just didn't have egregious, live service models and, massive DLC shops, but, like, there's a middle ground to be had there. There is, like, people who will pay for this shit without, you needing to completely screw over your core base, I guess.
So here's the ironic part in all of this. that I don't know how these executives don't see this, but that's neither here nor there.
Mhm.
The really ironic part in all this is that if they just gave me the core product that I wanted and I was really enjoying my time with it, I would be way more inclined to spend actual money on these skins and whatever. But it's just that's not the case. So I don't give them a
Mhm.
dime. Like I don't. You would think that would be
We
obvious, but it's
Yeah.
not.
No, yeah, we've talked about this a few times.
Yeah.
Even like Joe was even here for one of
Like
the conversations
take
when that one guy was just like, "Hey, how about we tip developers?" Right? We're just
yeah,
like, "No, no,
he
no,"
can
and
go
I
fuck himself.
and I posited that guess what, you can kind of get that tip if you want. You make a good core experience and a reasonably priced cosmetic. When people buy that reasonably priced cosmetic, that's your tip, because that's somebody like a me or a Dan or a Joe that's really enjoying our time in the game, and we plan on putting a lot of time into it. We'll buy things that we like in the game.
So the last time I remembered, um, like what I'm talking about, what I'm describing here is Modern Warfare 2019. I loved that game so much. I bought like a decent amount of stuff from the shop
Yeah.
because I liked the way that it looked, and I had no problem with it because one, I put so much time into the game. And two, I just liked the way that it played. So I was way more inclined on spending actual money in the
Yeah.
microtransaction shop. And even
I,
though I would spend like $20 on a fucking skin, like, whatever. I enjoy the game that much. I wanna and I like the skin for the character. Like, I'll pay the money, but I
mhm.
still need that core gameplay system
Yeah.
around everything else. But so
Yeah. I mean, I even I was a bit more stringent. Like
yeah.
the thing that closed the deal for me was essentially that it's like, oh, these are going to work in Warzone too. Yeah, sure. I'll if I can get a gun that works in Modern Warfare 19 and Warzone for like the next 3 years, and I like the
Right,
way
that
it
was
looks.
just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, that was the icing on the cake for me. So I went in and I was a mark for pretty much every anime gun that came out for Modern Warfare 2019 and Cold War. I think I owned every anime bundle that came out that had what I wanted on it. So it's just like, I listen, if you put a good game in front of me, or a game where it's like I'll be able to, I'll have this for a long time, and you're not screwing me over in some way, I'll put the extra money in. But it's like, you can't, like, it's sad because, like, what we just discussed is like hey, we like the game, we'll put a little bit more into it, is like a gateway for them. Like, they say, like, oh,
Yeah.
they're willing to pay this much, what will they pay for next, and how can we scrape more away from what effort we're putting in, so that they can, so they're paying more and we're putting in less effort. It's a fucking mess.
Yeah, it really is. All right, well, moving on from there. Anyone else have a small thing they would like to discuss?
You got anything, Joe?
I still got some stuff. I just wanted to throw it out there.
I was actually going to talk. I had a lot to say about Battlefield.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
And in that vein, I was actually going to bring up a couple things. You guys were discussing that, like, people who like make skins and sell shit like that they would get, like, basically, that's like basically their tip. I don't know how,
It's
like,
not.
it's not like they probably wouldn't get the money if they, like, specifically made something.
When I said that, it wasn't like a literal one-to-one. I'm just saying, like, it's on them to sort that out, but that's where we would be putting the extra money into.
No, of course. Which is why what I was going to bring up was that actually Warframe does something like this, which you may have heard of. It's called Tenogen, which
No, I don't know anything about that.
So on Steam, because it is a Steam exclusive thing, since Warframe is on consoles as well, there is a workshop section which is typically reserved for like mods and things like that, for just regular Steam users to post a mod or something that they made for a particular game. There is actually one for Warframe, even though Warframe is not really a moddable game for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'll find in that section is user created content that the developers have released, like, kits for each Warframe, and their, like, specific abilities, specific mechanics. Like the Warframe I play, Goss, the most, he has this ability called Redline, which when you use it, he like charges up for a second, and then his like basically vents on his body all open up all over the place, and like fire spews out of it. Um, and obviously, if you're making a skin for this particular Warframe, it has to work with those specific abilities. So like the developers facilitate it with things like that, but the bottom line is that users are making these things and they are getting a cut of the revenue from those sales, which you can only buy them with Steam Wallet Cash instead of Platinum.
Okay.
So yes, it does work because people do spend money on it. So you're absolutely right, and it would work, but the people who want to make money off of the games probably would not let that happen.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion. And then the other thing I was going to say, because I was going to bring up Battlefield, was that I already own Battlefield 3 and 4, so I don't need to buy whatever the next one is. so yes, yeah.
Touche.
I saw what they were thinking about making. They're making it modern.
Isn't Battlefield 4 like still like aren't the servers pretty active still?
Yeah. So is Battlefield 1. People still play Battlefield. I like last month or so I was playing Battlefield 1. It's still just as fun as I remember.
Yeah.
I just don't play it, and and like I like loot boxes and shit too. I don't think they're like inherently the worst. When they work in the exact same way that for the most part, I've been used to, is that like if you get something you already own, then they give you cash, and then later on, if you accumulate enough of that, you could buy what you want directly. It's like kind of like a, try your luck system where you eventually get what you want no matter what. So
what game actually had like a really, really good and fair loot box system? Vermintide 2.
Overwatch also didn't have a bad one. Admittedly, it wasn't the worst, even though they, the more skins came out for it, the more kind of like ass it was.
Still.
But yeah, I pretty much completely agree. I don't really care about all that stuff, especially when it's all like, it's pretty much all cosmetic for the most part. You know what I mean? Because like,
right, and that's fine. But like,
yeah. And Battlefield has a tendency to like make pretty much all of their like weapon unlocks and stuff like that all gameplay based, where you have to complete a specific objective, and that's how it was in 1. I don't know if it was like that in 2042 or whatever, because I didn't play it because it was Jesus Christ. That was a fucking disgusting mess.
Yeah, it's terrible. Just fucking terrible.
Yeah. I didn't want to play it. I knew everything about it. I knew all I needed to know, and I'm like, this game has lost its identity. So. Like you were saying that it's like it just doesn't have the bones of a Battlefield game, and I was like,
right.
That's how I feel about Assassin's Creed. Not to go back to that, but yeah. No, I really I hope they do go back to that, and maybe the next Battlefield game, that's the one I'll get, depending on
to be completely fair. I mean, I'm not going to say that Battlefield was in this big of a ditch before, but Battlefield 1 kind of came out of nowhere, and it was just really, really good. So, maybe
it was
somewhere deep inside DICE has like another like random one in them, but it's more than likely not going to be the next one.
I'm absolutely. I mean, it's funny because Dan said, and I quote, "Temper your expectations." Yep. And I just laughed because I was like, I love that fucking phrase. That's like, oh man, that phrase is fucking hilarious. It's like brace yourself. I'm going in dry. I have no fucking lube. I don't got any butter. I don't have anything. It's just, oh my god. I really is. I love it when they say that, because it's literally just like, this is going to suck, and that's pretty much what it boils down to almost all the time.
Yeah.
Like there are plenty of like tidbits of hope sprinkled throughout the industry of studios doing like the live service thing right, people doing just whatever right. Like it is possible. It's not not that it's impossible. It's just that for whatever reason, apparently it is not financially viable to do the right thing. So we're stuck with bullshit.
Yeah, I will say that, just to that end, it's just like, listen, it's getting it to work is lightning in a bottle. People are losing more money than it's worth because, they fail so frequently at this point. We mentioned last week there's been a ton of cancellations. But The only, like, I think what I said last week was I was basically saying, as people try, even though it sucks to see them continually try this and drag their feet, is when they fail hard, because even if like one of them is moderately successful, it doesn't net me or you, and we kind of know it's bullshit, but some people are buying into it. It's never enough for them. It's never the margins that they want.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this is probably as good a time as any to talk about the Xbox Developer Direct that was just revealed, gone over, announced, whatever you want to call it, a couple days ago. Anthony, I feel like you probably have some of the bigger opinions on this than Joe and I.
So before the Xbox, I guess I'll lead this one off just because it surprisingly opened with what I was waiting for, because basically a week before this thing launched, they basically said, like, we're gonna have a Japanese developer. It's one with a long legacy. Tune in. And I'm just like, okay. And everyone's speculating who it is, because I'm just thinking to myself, it's got to be one of two people. It's got to be either Koei Tecmo or Sega, because they have been partnering or always been around and working with Xbox since the 360 days. So I'm just like, if they're going to do a surprise announcement, it's going to be from one of them, and it ended up being Koei Tecmo with Ninja Gaiden 4. And I was surprised, because basically they had said like a year or two ago that they were still committed to Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive. And everybody was kind of nervous, because a lot of these companies, as we know, as we've talked about, there's been a lot of toning down of things, be it, action, gore, fan service, you name it. Everything's just been kind of toned down. And with Koei Tecmo and their flagship properties, you can't really do that, because Ninja Gaiden was always a very excessive, ball-busting, brutal, gory game. I'm not going to say it was like just a visceral experience like a Mortal Kombat or anything like that, but it was always like it was an adrenaline action game, and across both Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, there were very heavy fan service elements, so everybody was a bit concerned about that. And I gotta say, I think they came out swinging. Ninja Gaiden 4 looks really, really good. It looks like they're doing this, I don't want to say successor route, because it doesn't look like the main character Ryu is going anywhere, but it's basically
Ryu Hayabusa. What a name.
Yeah. It doesn't look like they're gonna be like replacing him, but they're doing almost like a Devil May Cry 4 thing. And if you weren't aware, Dan, it's they had the original character Dante, and they introduced a new character, Nero. And the idea with that was like one played like the traditional game that you're used to, and that's what Dante did in Devil May Cry, and that's what it looks like Ryu's doing in Ninja Gaiden. But then you have this new character that plays a bit more streamlined and a bit more upfront, which is kind of what Nero's role was in Devil May Cry 4, and what this new character is doing in Ninja Gaiden. But with the added twist of Platinum Games handling a lot of the development work, so a lot of their action-oriented tropes that you would know if you've played any of their games, from original ones like Bayonetta or third-party ones like their Transformer games. The one Transformer game they did, Devastation, very, very good. Probably their best game, if I'm being biased. But anyway, and it looks like that just between the two characters, it's going to be like the main focuses are going to be, just a traditional Ninja Gaiden game and a streamlined Platinum game kind of mixed together, because Ninja Gaiden has always offered multiple characters that you can play around with. But the long and short of it is, it looks really, really good. I'm hesitant to get excited or get my hopes up, because I've been let down in the past, but it looks really, really good. And when it comes to they also shadow dropped Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which I mentioned before I was playing, and I think they handled that as best they could, given the resources they did. I'm a little hesitant to, everybody kind of groaned when they saw Unreal Engine 5, and I am much the same. And based on how it handled for Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, a lot of my worries weren't alleviated there. There seems to be some performance hiccups in a few areas, and a lot of like default engine things in there that I didn't quite like, but playstyle wise, I think they still got it. So we're going to see what Ninja Gaiden 4 has much later when it launches in the fall.
All right, cool. Yeah, I never actually played a Ninja Gaiden game before. I've always known of its existence, but I've never actually played a game.
So
I was never really into action games. I don't dislike them actively. I just never really got into them. So
yeah.
I mean, I'll try Ninja Gaiden when it comes out because I have Game Pass, but I'd never actually play one before.
What it's tough. It's a tough recommendation for a few reasons for me, just because, like I said, they are notoriously difficult. I think they get easier as they go along. Even Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, as I'm playing it, seems a lot easier than I remember it. But what I'll tell you, Dan, like I mentioned before, Koei Tecmo and Sega, and much like Sega, are very strong partners with Xbox. All of the Ninja Gaiden Sigma games are on Game Pass. So if you wanted to try those, you could.
Okay.
Yeah. I will say, like I said, it kind of escalates with difficulty. Like, I think 1 is very tough, 2 is a little easier, 3 is a little easier, but I'd say they're worth playing. But it's kind of like with Dead Rising, where it's like I find it's a hard recommendation because I know the difficulty curve's not for everybody. But I think there's difficulty selections in the Sigma remakes. I can't remember, but they're there to try if you want. And then obviously Ninja Gaiden 4 will be playable in the fall.
Right. All right. Cool. All right. So that was Ninja. They announced 4 games in total, right?
Well, they announced 2 games and showed off 3 games that were already shown off.
Okay. So
so I'm just gonna say we can probably just skip right the fuck over South of Midnight unless the 2 of you care about that.
not really.
Joe, do you have some undying passion for South of Midnight that you're hiding?
What is South of Midnight?
Okay, that answers that question. So that leaves us with the other 2 games. I'm assuming you want to spend most of your time with Doom and talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me just.
What's the other one?
The other one was Expedition 33.
Right. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was. I mentioned it's kind of slipped my mind because I've been talking a lot about games that I'm actually excited about, and that one keeps slipping my mind. I'm very excited for it. It's basically a Western take on a JRPG, and it's the one that we saw get announced at an Xbox show last year, where it's a bunch of people are going on an expedition to try and defeat this mythical creature that every year shows up, paints a number, and everyone at that age or older dies. Like that's the setup.
I think that is a really, really cool premise for the narrative of a game, and it's only going to be a disappointment if whatever conclusion that you reach at the story of that game is just like not good.
It's got it's definitely an interesting concept. It's got a lot of big name actors in it. Like I think Charlie Cox is playing the lead. A lot of good actors in the lineup. I remember looking and being surprised along the way. But anyway, to talk about the game itself, just again, I give a quick rundown so you can get to Doom. Is they basically showed off everything about the game. Like they covered the different regions and they all look unique, and it's not like the typical like, oh, you know, lava snow zone forest. It's like each one is kind of intricate and designed in its own way. They showed off all the characters. They showed off the fact that like there's a large world map to traverse, and it really just like looking at all we had leading up to this point was just the premise and the gameplay, which is kind of like it's got like the JRPG elements, but they wanted to make it active, and they really stressed that throughout all their playtesting. They brought it to people who like turn-based, and they brought it to people who liked active, and they struggled really hard to get in the middle where it's like, sure, you're just selecting the actions from the menu like a traditional RPG like I like, but there's a lot going into it with like on the defensive side, you can parry and block, you're aiming certain skills and all this stuff, and it looks active. It's almost like the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, if it's like taking it more in the action side from the turn-based. This game is kind of on the opposite side of the coin, where you're still turn-based, line up, choose your skills, but you're much more active in it, almost like the Super Mario RPG games where you would like press buttons to deflect attacks and jump over them and stuff like that. So it looks very promising. It went from an interesting premise with interesting music and stuff like that to a fully fleshed out world and tons of things to do in it. So I'm like, seeing that has only kind of solidified my excitement for it. And short of me booting it up and immediately getting hit with some kind of bullshit or some kind of stupid nonsense that's modern, it should be a good time. But it's a Game Pass game. All these games that they showed were Game Pass games, so I won't have to pay a single dime for potential
that's definitely a
disappointment.
W.
So
Yeah.
all right, Dan, you are like I'm interested in this game, but you're definitely gonna you and Joe will probably have more
Oh
to say
yeah,
about
no,
this than I do.
I'm a huge Doom fan. I fucking love the original Doom 2016. What
I also
back
did.
when it came out. Doom Eternal I thought was a ton of fun. I think Doom 2016 was better overall,
I agree.
especially since like they uh th- what was the most recent Doom game prior to 2016? Was it Doom 3?
I think it might have been. I think it might have been. Because Doom 3 was in production and it had its own hurdles to go over, and then Doom 4 was in development for a while and it was like rebooted in development twice before becoming Doom 2016. I think that's what ended up happening.
Okay, yeah. So Doom 2016 was a fucking masterclass in first person shooters. That game was so fucking
It
good.
was an excellent
Uh,
soft reboot.
yeah,
It was a very
yeah,
good game.
truly phenomenal. Doom Eternal was still a lot of fun. I don't think it was as good as 2016, but it was still
agree.
I had a blast with it. And the Dark Ages just looks fucking awesome. Like I'm pretty hyped for the Dark Ages. Like I just got a Mark of the Doomslayer tattoo like a couple weeks ago. It's not like huge or anything, but there's a whole story behind it. I won't go into it right now. But I ended up getting the Mark of the Doomslayer tattoo, and it was like it was been on my list for a long time to get that. So seeing the gameplay reveal for the Dark Ages was just awesome. Like, okay, so this is how I summed it up to you, Anthony, like a couple days ago. Dragons, chainsaw shield, and mechs. Like, I don't know what else I could want in a fucking video
Yeah,
game.
it's funny because like I'm looking at it all the spectacle. Sometimes I like raise my eyebrow on how much spectacle there is, but like I'm looking at the gameplay. I was watching this
Right.
with a buddy of mine, and he's more into the classic stuff, and he kind of had the same view that we do on 2016 and Eternal. It's like 2016 was solid. Eternals was not necessarily as good as 2016. Only difference is he wasn't as big a fan as 2016, and like he's more of an old school Doom guy, and we kind of had the same takeaway where it's just like it looks like so much more grounded in a good
Yeah.
way to play, like
Yeah,
regardless of the
yeah,
set
exactly.
pieces. Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
like
Eternal was much more like acrobatic. Like
Well,
Exactly.
what did Hugo Martin say, who's
so
the creative
he
director?
said Doom 2016 was run and gun, Eternal
Yep.
was jump and shoot, Dark Ages is stand and fight, and that's the
Right.
perfect way to
And
really sum these games
if
up.
I had to take my pick, I would pick stand and fight every
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
I'm fucking thrilled for this design philosophy
Yeah.
in the Dark Ages. I can't wait to play it. The fact that it's on Game Pass is just the cherry on top. And everything that I've seen so far, I get no negative feelings. On top of all of that, they said that they're not doing any kind of multiplayer, so it's a single player only game,
Yes.
which I think is a really, really, really good choice for the game because
Yeah,
in Eternal, battle mode was good, but it was just kind of tacked on. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, no, I get that. I kind of wish they would have tried another like upgrade of Snap Map, but I appreciate that all the effort is going into the campaign.
Right. Yeah, and it's just everything that I've seen so far, like I said, looks really cool. The glory kills that were introduced in 2016, apparently they're not going like you're not going to be locked in an animation anymore. It's going to be
Okay.
much more dynamic, where like
Yes.
if you get like the visual cue to perform a glory kill, and you just do it. Like you don't get sucked into this animation where the control gets ripped away from you for
Yeah.
like 2 to 4 seconds.
That I'll be honest.
I don't
with
know how
that.
I feel about that yet.
I think that was a very big overcorrection, personally. Like I don't think like I think when I went to play Doom 2016 the other day, I kind of got locked into this. Like I was going for glory kills specifically, and I don't necessarily think that's the greatest. And then Eternals doubled down on it because like the entire ammo economy was based around doing glory kills. Like
Yeah.
to stay alive and get ammo, you basically were locked into that. Even though I think it was more feasible than people make it out to be. But I do think it's an overcorrection. I think it would have been much better to kind of have like this new system where it's like you're not always locked into it, but you get the benefits from doing it. But also having situations where you still did those animations, those quick, satisfying kills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything about the game just looks so much fun. I can't wait to play it.
Some of the things I noticed, I'm sitting there, I'm like trying to play, so I'm like, this game kind of reminds me of something. I couldn't put my hands on it, and my buddy, what he said to me is like, it almost looks like Bulletstorm in the way that you combo certain things and chain certain things together with the glory kills, because it's like you'd set something up and then you would use one of the new parts of these systems to like basically like you'd throw out a flail or you'd throw the shield to do finishing moves. It's like there's almost a bit of comboing going into the new system because of the fact that they disabled glory kills, which is a plus, even though I kind of wish they would have kept them in some way, shape, or form. But
the last thing that I want to touch on as far as Doom goes is the fact that they went out of their way to say that this isn't like Doom: The Dark Ages is not necessarily the end of the new era Doom IP. Just because it's a prequel and they're going back to like however many years prior to Eternal it was, it's still a very big possibility for a new Doom game in a few more years, which is great. Like they're not trapping themselves in any which way because this is a prequel. I don't. Oh man, so the way the Doom Eternal ended with the DLC was like pretty fucking definitive. So I don't know where they can go after that, but I still like to hear that they're not done making Doom.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I do think that they've been comfortably spacing the games, which is good. You don't want to try and turn this into an every year, every other year kind of situation.
The amount of time in between each Doom game so far has been like perfect.
Yeah. I won't say this new series is necessarily my favorite, but it is a good time, and I think they're keeping it healthy because each of the games in this trilogy have that different focus that we talked about before. It's spaced adequately, it's doing its own thing, and it's something you quite honestly don't really see in the industry. Like, there's shared DNA there for sure, but it's like every game is just like more of the same, which is appreciative in a way, but not in the way that they've been doing it the last couple of years as an industry, so it's
Doom
it's an interesting
2016
place.
Came out obviously in 2016.
Yes.
And then Eternal came out in 2020, and now the Dark Ages is coming out 2025. Like, that is a really good separation of time in between each game.
Comfortable spacing.
It's definitely
really
staying relevant.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they can get away, like, even if they wanted to take their time, like a long time, they could get away with it. It's Doom, but I'm glad they didn't let the popularity and like just the acclaim of the series go to their head and turn it into like okay, we're going to do one this year, one next year, and in between we're going to do a spin-off, and also we're going to do like all this other shit. No, it's just it's as classic and as Doom as an experience as you can expect from games without it, they're changing it just enough.
Yeah. So I mean that pretty much does it for me. The last big thing I wanted to talk about was Doom, and covered that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing small, so I'm going to save that for next week. So I think that does it for this week.
Cool. Well, that was. I mean, I know that was pretty abrupt, but that is episode 40 of the Pregame Network podcast. Really looking forward to Doom. Battlefield is in a terrible state. What else did we cover?
The DMC anime is gonna suck, but I'm excited for Expedition 33. It's like I can't believe it, guys. I have like 5-6 games I'm somewhat excited for. Like that means this year is either gonna go great for me or it's gonna end fucking tragically.
Terrible, and I might have to put you on suicide watch.
Oh man, Joe might have to take over his co-host for a while if the year doesn't quite go my way.
Oh god. So anywho, that was episode 40. Hope everybody enjoyed. We'll be back same time next week.
Yeah.
All right. Drive safe. Don't drink and drive. See you next week.
Whatever. All that stuff. Don't leave your house.
Right,
it's scary out there.
Unsafely.
It is scary out there.
Just stay home and drink.
Oh god. All right. Bye bye.